because we have a very exciting panel here today. I'm your moderator, Rembrandt Flores. I'm the founder of 8 Commas. You can look us up online. Next to me is John Caldwell. Can you do a little brief intro, John?
Yeah, my name is John Caldwell. I run the NFT and venture funds for Wave Financial. Also work on a few other projects, Unicorn DAO, and helped out on Ukraine DAO as well.
And next to him is our dear friend, Keith Grossman.
Hi, I'm Keith Grossman. I'm the president of Time.
Perfect.
Do I need more introduction? I'm good on that?
No,
Okay.
that's amazing, amazing.
Okay.
And Nadya, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Nadya Tolokonnikova. I'm a co-founder of Unicorn and Riot.
Perfect. Andrew Wang.
Hi everybody, I'm Andrew Wang. I'm the co-founder of Devotion. I have one of my co-founders, Siduk, in the audience with me. I do a lot of Twitter spaces, try my best to be a community person for NFTs.
And last but not least, Emily Yang, also known as People Pleaser.
Hi, I'm Emily. I go by the artist name People Pleaser. I do stuff in the NFT space.
Amazing. So it's really special because most panels, obviously, we don't know each other. But this panel, we happen to all be friends in real life. So this is going to be a very, very interesting panel. And now we get to talk amongst friends with our new friends. We're going to be talking about NFTs, as you guys know. So you guys, even though we're in a bear market, right? Obviously, it's a very exciting time in our space. You know, in 2 days or T-minus 2 days, we know that the big 2 words is happening, right? Which is
GM.
The merge, not GM, the merge. So let's talk about the merge. How is the merge going to affect all of us individually, collectively, our projects, the whole entire space? Is going to obviously change everything. So let's start off with whoever wants to begin and talk about the merge.
Me?
People pleaser, let's go.
Well, I mean, I think it's up only. I mean, I'm kidding. Honestly, I think what realistically is going to happen is just ETH is going to be a little bit more efficient. People are going to probably not know what it means, but the price will go up a little bit. And then I think we're going to okay, this is not financial advice, but I think we're probably going to hang around, you know, like similar prices or maybe go a little bit lower. I don't think we're going to see another bull market this year. But all things considered.
How about next year? Are we going to still be in a bear market next year?
I think that there's more likely to be a bull market next year rather than this year. But
when next year, Emily?
when next year?
Everyone wants to know.
Then.
How much longer are we going to be in this bear market?
Apparently, I'm the oracle now.
Yes.
I mean, let's make it my birthday next year, then in October.
Okay, you guys heard it here. On her birthday, we're going to finally enter another bull market.
All jokes aside, I'm excited for my staked ETH to slowly be unlocked. So that's something that's exciting.
Yes.
It's kind of like crypto people's like savings account, you know? And,
Yeah.
and I think most people are probably excited about that.
Perfect. Keith.
But I would say, like, financial aside, right? I found, like, I took time into the Web3 space 19 months ago. And after I got over the hump of everyone thinking I was insane, you know, and we've had a lot of success with it.
We still do.
I know. Well, listen, it's totally fine. I've always operated my entire career being on the cusp of insanity, right? But you know, like what I've found with a lot of large corporations is whether you believe that, you know, there's, you know, environmental issues with Ethereum or not,
Right.
with, you know, the proof of work sort of methodology, is irrelevant because the perception is that there is, right? And perception's reality when it comes to more adoption. And so, you know, like one of the really big benefits that I think will come of sort of the merge taking place is that that sort of issue surrounding the adoption of, you know, the Ethereum blockchain and you know, NFTs at times on that blockchain will remove itself. Now,
Yeah.
I will caution that I have seen personally that when you don't understand the space, you attribute zero value to the space.
Correct.
right?
I agree.
And so when you attribute zero value to the space, you look for all the things that are wrong with the space. And like the environment was like just an easy sort of area for people to attack and say like, this is stupid, this is valueless, and it's bad for the environment. My concern is that like when the merge takes place, like I don't want the space to be like, ha ha ha, F you to the environmentalists. Right. Rather, I want people to be like, look, now that like we've heard you that this is like the merge was actually extracted from the ETH2 upgrade, like we're focusing on this, let us show you the value. And like the one sort of thing, and this is just huge compliments to Nadya and to essentially everyone on this stage except for me who's in Ukraine DAO and Unicorn DAO, which is that a lot of people saw value in the space when they saw the space being used for good causes, right?
Absolutely.
Like when Nadya raised $8 million for Ukraine DAO, like, I mean, Andrew raised $1 million in 30 seconds for Ukraine relief with his institution relief. Like I did it, I did a 2-day auction with timepieces that raised close to $400,000.
Yep.
When we did stuff like that, and by the way, she's the most soft-spoken, probably the best human being in the space as a representative of that. When we did that, people started to really see value in the conversations that I was having. Like, wow, I didn't realize that you could do good with these NFTs. And this idea of warm crypto, I think, is a very appealing topic that hopefully when the environment is off the table because it's been solved, for the most part, people can focus on.
Yeah, it also it opens up Ethereum as well as all of NFTs to be ESG compliant.
Yeah.
Not all NFTs, because there's still Bitcoin NFTs for some strange population out there. But anything on
Gold bars.
Ethereum, yeah, anything on Ethereum will be ESG compliant now. So for institutional grade investors, that's a big deal.
Explain what that is for those who don't know.
I don't know what it stands for. I could Google it real quick, or I don't know. ESG. It means like there has to be some sort of lower impact with your investments.
Got it. Okay.
But another side effect of it is, or a ripple effect of it, I think the people that care mostly about or are sensitive to environmental or social causes are the artists and the creators. So I don't know if financial institutions really care except for this ESG rating, which they kind of have to do.
Right.
But, financial institutions have done great off of things that are horrible for the environment forever. I don't think this is an exception. So, but artists is a different story. And like Keith mentioned, when you're going and you're outreaching an artist to come into NFTs, why don't you do an NFT? Why don't you use this new amazing technology? The environment is like a huge concern for them. And it's just like a no, I will not do it. There's no way I'll ever do an NFT because of that. And starting in 3 days or whatever, it's a non-issue.
Got it. Andrew, you just started Devotion. So how is this going to affect you with your new company and you as a collector? You're a KOL in this space, so please elaborate.
Yeah, I think proof of stake in general doesn't really affect what we're going to do anyways.
Okay.
To share an anecdote, a few months ago, I called up my friend I went to high school with. His name's Mustafa. And I said, hey, how are things going in life? How are things with your girlfriend? And he said, oh, we broke up over a hot dog. And I was like, what do you mean? And he said, well, we were walking down the street on a date, and I wanted to get this hot dog from the halal cart. And she said, no, we have to get there. And I said, I'm not going to be late if we get a hot dog. And they had a fight right there on the street, and then they broke up. And when I heard that, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is crazy. Who would break up over a hot dog? And then a few months ago, I kind of had the same thing happen to me over talking about the environment, where my ex was asking me, why are you doing these things on Ethereum when the environmental costs are so great? And I kind of, I think in hindsight it was wrong of me to kind of be this coy, but I said, well, I mean, to be honest, the benefits outweigh the costs. And I think part of me was like being a little bit of an asshole, but I also think it's a certain aspect that we also have to face when we're facing, the transition from proof of work to proof of stake, is that for most of us, what we've been doing on ETH we've accepted the benefits as greater than the costs. Now what's interesting is I think there's always this kind of learning process where the things that get you into something can change, right? I think for me, I'm gonna be honest, like, I hate that this might make me look bad, but the fun I had with NFTs and the people I was meeting always made the environmental costs a kind of afterthought, to the point where if, people on the outside were talking about it, but people on the inside, it didn't keep us from building the things that we were trying to build.
Right.
But now that you're moving to proof of stake, it's sort of something you can accept as like, okay, cool. Well, before you had certain incentives like, if people are trying to save on costs, for example, miners, then it makes sense to go towards renewables. You already had that incentive. But if proof of stake kind of expedites that process, then sure, you can accept it. And I think what's interesting too is we're at a point where we've been in, I don't know if you would call this an extended bear market. It's definitely at the point where even me, like, I no longer believe in WAGMI, unfortunately. But it's at the point where it's sort of like, okay, it's not just flipping NFTs and seeing them go to 7 figures every day. We have to find more things to like about crypto.
Yes.
And more things to like about the technology that sort of underlays all of these pictures and art, which is, to me, it's so important. But it's sort of at a time where I'm learning to sort of grow out and branch out a little bit. Some people are branching out into DeFi. I'm trying to learn more about, ETH and what proof of stake is. And I think it's a nice awakening for a lot of people to sort of learn more about the overarching ecosystem. And I think that can only be a good thing.
Great. So, Nadya, do you want to chime in or no? We're good.
No, I'm just looking forward to be hated a little bit more, a little bit less, because I'm like a lot of people hated me for fucking with NFTs, and
Totally.
I hope that the merge is gonna help me a tiny bit.
Understood.
I mean, I have tons of other stuff for what people hate me.
Oh, can I make a joke real quick?
You can make a joke, John.
About Nadya being hated a little less?
No, it was about
Okay.
Andrew's hot dog and dating story. I just was going to say, you've obviously never dated within the vegan activist community.
Yeah, but I actually divorced over a hot dog.
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah,
There you
and
go.
okay.
Wow.
Great.
he was eating way too much, and he was stopping all the time at every single hot dog station and eating. Like, you just have to do something else in life. Amazing guy, otherwise.
So now I want to talk about community and brand. I think it's really important for the audience to know within the NFT space. So what comes first, guys? Build a community, then a brand, or build the brand first and then develop the community? I want all of you guys to chime in because all your perspectives are very, very different, I'm sure. So who wants to start?
Sure. I mean,
Keith wants to start.
Yeah, I think he
look,
has to.
I have a 99-year-old brand, right?
Yes.
So I didn't have a choice on community or brand, but I had a choice between community or revenue, which was a question that was presented to me right after we launched Timepieces back in September of last year. So first, brand is always important because brand acts as a filter, right?
Yes.
It gives you the opportunity to understand what the values are surrounding, what you're engaging with, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes those values are positive, sometimes those values are not, right? Doesn't make a difference. But that's what the brand ultimately acts as a trusted filter. So when I looked at this space, I thought one of the most interesting aspects of the space was that a Web 2 brand operates completely differently from a Web 3 brand when it relates to community activations within the NFT space and ecosystem. In Web 2, the equation for success is really brand identifies a creator who attracts an audience, right? So like for Time, that equation would be Time hires Ian Bremmer. Ian Bremmer writes an article about geopolitics. You might go out and search for that topic. You see Time, you see Ian Bremmer, you trust both, it's the topic you want, you read it, and then you go on with your day, right? That's an audience. Most people don't distinguish between audience and community, right? Audience just comes, it engages, it goes. That's it. And Time has an audience of 100 million people a month. A community builds. A community is there with you. A community gives you feedback. A community is there when it's good. A community is there when it's bad, if it's a strong community.
Yeah.
And the equation for success in Web3 communities is really community uplifts a creator. And then the brand's job is not to be the hero, not to be the center, but rather to uplift the creator further. By validating the creator, the community validates the brand, right? And that's a completely opposite approach, right? When you start to think about it, it's very hard for people to think about. And a lot of people were attracted to what Andrew was saying, which was 7-figure returns and on NFTs and whatnot. But like really, when you think about the Web3 space, communities break down into two areas. They break down into greed-based communities and values-based communities. And greed-based communities flip up to the 7 figures very quickly, but they don't last through moments like crypto winters. They're not built for long-term sort of success.
Yeah.
Values-based communities are predicated on the notion of values create value over time. And so when you think about how you're going to derive revenue on a values-based community, like it has to be by hugging and building with the community first, and building that community and that relationship as strong and as tight as possible. And from that, revenue is unlocked. But anytime revenue leads, the community can see it very quickly.
Correct.
And it won't last.
Doesn't work. Nadya, brand first or community first?
I'm also in a unique position. I came to Web3 as Pussy Red. We had both so-called brand. I'm really resistant to calling Pussy Red brand. I guess it is, but I think it's a movement. So it's a protest art movement. So we've already had brand and community. So I don't really know what should come first.
Andrew?
It's a tough question. I think just thinking about where I come from, you know, I think I'm like the opposite of Keith.
Okay.
I came, not the opposite of Keith, you know, as a person, because Keith is amazing, and I think I'm like, okay. But I think I came to the NFT space with like no brand, right? I was just a freelance writer making like $12 an hour. I was like, okay, it would be a lot harder for me to build a brand, but it's a lot easier for me to build a community, or at least to be part of one, right?
Right.
Because when you're building a brand, you kind of have to like be in the front seat a little bit and say like, this is how things are gonna go, this is what I wanna create for myself. But you can be part of a community and you can drive a community, whereas you kind of have to drive a brand. It's very easy to just jump into a community. It's something that we kind of miss in the bear market, I think, to just be in a Discord or in a Twitter group. And you know, I always think about like that 1,000 true fan theory, right? The idea that if you have 1,000 people who love you rather than say 1 million people who like you, you can basically do anything. I think obviously you can sell products to them, but you can also get feedback from them, right? They can become your
In
friends.
real time,
They can
so
make you
it's-
better,
exactly.
like in a perfect world.
Right.
I like that idea a lot, just to be in a more kind of dynamic, emergent group where people are teaching you things. I think it's part of why I wanted to find 2 co-founders when I started Devotion.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I could use my name and my reputation, but at some point I would get stuck and I would not know what to do, and I would need that experience and you know, circle of feedback. And that's a lot more helpful because we don't just want to deliver on what we are or what we're capable of now. In theory, you get better and you learn new things, and ultimately that makes what you deliver, I think, much better.
Of
Well,
course.
hold on one second, because
Yeah,
one
Keith.
thing that should be clarified is like, it's not brand or community, it's like how you have to enter in. Like I had to
What's-
enter in as brand and then
Yes.
build from the community, but the power of this space is exactly what Andrew's achieved, right? He emerged from the community
Yes.
and was
And he
built
created
up
a
from the
name from the
community.
community, yes.
The 2 examples, I mean, I would give is there are 2 types of timepiece artists that we curate from. One is the community-based artists, artists like Fuck Render or Victor Mascara or Diana Sinclair, who have emerged up from the community, and then historical time cover artists that we introduced to Web3. And I'll tell you, every single time, the artists that are far more engaged, more loved, more sort of traded, more held on it, and like in every instance are the
They came
community-based
from
artists.
The community. Correct. People pleaser with your projects, with Shibuya and whatnot, brand first, community first, same time. Tell us.
I mean, I think my case is a little bit unique in the sense that the community wasn't like an intended thing.
Yeah.
And I was operating as an artist, and then so I had adopted an artist named People Pleaser, and then I think the brand just came from people thinking that it's a relatable name.
Yeah.
But then when Pleaser DAO was formed, it was like this moment where a community was like automatically formed but
from
not
that, yeah.
something that I intentionally created, which I think is beautiful in itself, but it's something that I wasn't aware of before, which is now actually these people are my friends, and a lot of them I didn't know them before, and then
Yep.
we met each other through this community, and I feel like it's kind of like in real life situations too. When you're at a conference or something, you want to group with people that you're more familiar with or that you can relate to. And in the metaverse or online, it's the same thing. And people are finding clans. And so I think that, at least in my experience, they kind of like came together. It's not one versus
Right.
the other, but now they've kind of like merged.
Yes.
And they can have like a mutually beneficial relationship. But with Shibuya specifically, I think the idea came from basically it's kind of like a platform, and when you watch something, let's say a series, it'll spit back out tokens of this series, and it's not necessarily for monetary value, but where the community part comes in is like, let's imagine a future world where all of our IPs are on chain. Then, for example, if you wanted to like source the Star Wars community or like a Harry Potter community, if they already were like sort of tokenized, you don't have to go on Reddit, which is one website that is different from like IMDb, which is another. This Harry Potter community will always sort of like exist from one platform. It'll be platformless, and I feel like that's the power to sort of tokenizing a community in a way and how it can relate to like content and IP. And I'm sort of a proponent for always, because I'm an artist, I always feel like you should let the work speak for itself. And
Yeah.
if your content is good, there will just be, you don't have to try to make a community. People will just form a community around it.
True, very true. John.
Yeah, I've met a few people on this stage through NFT communities. So Andrew and Psyduck, I met you through the Cool Cats community, and Nadya, I met you through, I guess, Justin Aversano's Twin Flames community. Keith, probably similar. And I think it does come down to like the flow of ideas and information and even memes. Like we talk
Yes.
about memes a lot,
Of
and
course.
it starts to blend what is a brand, what is an idea, what is a community. It's just like, if you like this certain mimetic thing, you kind of relate to somebody off the bat. And so with like, when I met Andrew, I met him, I had no idea who he was, and he's like, I'm Upside Down Cat. And I was like, oh my God, it's you. And we've been friends ever since. Or Psyduck, he's an amazing collector in the space, he's in the audience here. He has crazy conviction into these NFTs, and I've always really, really respected that, into specific collections. And I think that conviction and that exchange of ideas is where the underlying tech of NFT and Web3 is really, really interesting and unlocks all of these communities and tokenized communities like People Pleaser was saying.
Perfect. Now I want to go into a section that I called Influencers NFTs. It's always my favorite topic, and I'm sure you guys are interested as well. So does this still work in Web3? How do we use influencers and KOLs without having us feel that they're always shilling a project? Doing it through authenticity and really about the community versus just about, again, trying to make more money from a specific project. I know it's a very hard question to answer, but I want you guys to take a stab at it.
Yeah,
And there's no right or wrong answer. Actually there is, but we're not going to judge you based on that. I really want your real answers.
Let me skip this one because I'm not really an influencer. I'm a shadow person with NFTs. But for the people who have founders who are like working in Web3 and are wondering this question, pay close attention because these people all have some of the best insight into this in the space.
Exactly.
Authenticity really, really matters in this space.
1000%.
And you'll get essentially X'd if you go in inauthentically.
Yes. I want to start off with Nadya on this.
Well, what I usually advise if I don't work with influencers. I work mostly with artists who I think they a little bit different species, but still, like, for example, we've been advising Marina Abramovic or Jizzy Chicago, Jenny Holter on the way how to build their drops and build their communities. And it's really simple. I think it always comes down to learning about this space and connecting with people, for real. So we would advise them to actually show up to events, or like whether it's in metaverse or it's in real life. And most of the people I interact with, I'm just fortunate enough to deal with people who are not shillers, and what they want to do, they want to build meaningful connections and add beautiful complexity as art pieces in the world. So they usually actually want to learn about this space. And I think once the space sees that, they will accept you. But it's, I know a lot of influencers are mad at the NFT space for being super protective of itself. But I don't blame it. I mean, like, we've all seen hatred towards super big celebrities entering the space, just dropping things with some, proxy people, never actually having to interact with the tech, with the community. And, this is really lame, because this community has a lot of value, and I think it's cool that we're protecting ourselves. But we can see, honest and honorable approach and authenticity.
Andrew, I'm very curious as to your answer to this, because obviously I met you because I thought you were technically an influencer in this space. And, I've been following your career since early last year. And we met because of I guess, through that, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you feel about influencers in this space as a KOL yourself?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm like, a lot of people say that I'm like really good at articulating lukewarm takes, but maybe I'm more like in the hot takes today. I actually don't think there are that many like influencers in the space. Okay. There's definitely this like low-hanging fruit of like, you go on Twitter and people are like, NFT influencers will like dump on you, whatever, they have their yachts. And I'm like, okay, so tell me their names. And then no one will say anything. And then if you do, it's like one or two names that keep popping up. So I was like, okay, like really? It's like, so it's one or two people, but half the tweets on NFT Twitter are about NFT influencers doing so-and-so, right? Like, you've seen these posts. It's like, hey, like for this giveaway for Allow List, whatever. But it's like, is that even the core community of people who drive things forward? I actually don't feel like it's about influencers per se. I think for the most part, at least on Twitter, Instagram is a different story. YouTube is a different story. I would say on Twitter, with NFTs specifically, we've already weeded out most of the traditional like Web 2 ideas of influencers. Yeah. I think what is most important now of like tempering and being aware of is like attention as a good, right? We talked about the attention economy. It really is about like which projects are the ones that are able to get attention, and is there something actually good behind that attention that they've generated? Siduk and I were talking. We were walking on our way here, and we were saying, what defines a blue chip? And we said he said one of the things that defines a blue chip is if something can lose attention and then get it back. There's something very impressive about losing attention in the space. People move on. It's no longer the big thing on the feed, and for some reason it comes back. Like, to me, that's interesting. But then when you think about attention, I like that in Web3 we can try to align it with certain incentives outside of influencers. I think Looksrare, when it first started, was a really clear-cut case of that. It was able to bootstrap network effects because you would get trading rewards, essentially. So you became like a shiller for Looksrare because you were getting trading rewards from trading on there. Mm-hmm. So of course you wanted people to start trading because the more volume that was happening, the more you would get rewarded. And like, okay, maybe there's like a little bit of Ponzi involved in that, but it was very interesting to see that incentive align. I think another case recently was with the Utes NFT. My friends were like, hey, you should apply for this Utes thing. It's like some Solana allow list thing, and I had no idea. So I was like, okay, let me fill this thing out. And then like 5 hours later, they made a Twitter post that was like, welcome, Andrew, your application to Uteless has been accepted. And then it ran up to like 500 likes instantly. And I was like, wait, so that's how you're generating attention, and that's what my cost is. My cost was letting you tweet, hey, welcome, Andrew Wang, or they did like, welcome, Wayne Rooney, welcome, Allen Iverson. It was almost that kind of marketing for attention and optimizing for attention that made them sort of successful from the get-go. So I think, to make my point short, I feel like influencers are a bit of a low-hanging fruit. We should think more about like, what is good marketing, but how do we evaluate a project for like real value underneath all of the hype? I think that's still the fundamental question.
Great. Anyone else want to chime in before we move on?
I have a thought for influencers, like influencers. Like, let's say if Jack Harlow wants to enter the space, and then I think he should try to bring his own community into Web3 rather than try to just harvest whatever happens here. So I would suggest them to just educate their fans on how to mint their first NFT, or maybe even like buy it with fiat, whatever. Like something, it has to be, like they have to perform, they have to show some proof of work. They can't just show up and expect to be adored.
It's true. So let's move on. Let's talk about monetization and NFTs. We're in September 2022, very different from October 2021, where you can launch a 10,000 PFP project and watch it soar and people make millions and millions and millions of dollars. Obviously, we can't do that now, right? So what are now the best use cases for NFTs? Are we allowed to make money now? Or are people like, oh, that's just you trying to make money, rug pull, blah, we're not gonna support that. So let's talk about that. So what is the future of NFTs in the sense of the best use cases for us to use this technology?
Well, I'll jump in on this one.
Great.
So I'm running 3 businesses within the Web3 space at time. I have a consumer business, which is timepieces,
Yes.
right? I have an IP business, which we have Time Studios, and so we work with Web3 brands and develop static IP out of the Web3 space into television shows, which we've signed the Robotos and the Littles and Toy Boogers up, and they've gone into contract, into production with Nirvana. And that's a business also, right? And then the third business is helping bring other brands into the Web3 space, right? You know, we've now had 19 months in the space, right? Which in dog years or Web3 years is about like 950 years, or like
Exactly.
Methuselah,
Yeah.
right? And we've made a lot of mistakes, and we've learned a lot, and we've built a lot of tech in-house to, as a big brand, be able to navigate it. And I would say that there's many different sort of use cases for NFTs. The space that we've been talking about on the stage has primarily been around art, community, and collectibles, right? And that will always sort of remain. It will condense, like the greed-based communities will disappear or shrink. New ones will emerge, but they'll disappear and shrink. You'll see the blue chips as Andrew. I thought that was a great definition. Like, can it lose attention and regain attention? Is a great example of like how to think about like a real valuable community. Those will remain and will grow. But I mean, the technology is so much greater than art, collectibles, and community. I mean, if you just look at what Starbucks announced yesterday, right?
Yes.
Like we're going to move
I'm on the
into
whitelist for that
subscriptions, memberships, loyalty, and when you start to really think about what Web3 is about, right? It's about choice, right? It's about the consumer having the choice of whether they want to be an online renter or an online owner, and the choice as to whether or not the consumer wants to provide their personal information or not, right?
Yeah.
In Web 2, you only have the option of being a renter, and you have no option as it relates to your personal information. Web 3, you now all of a sudden have a new choice, and with those choices, new economic sort of paradigms emerge. And like, I honestly think the next 100 million people that enter into the space will come very quickly, and you'll see it. Ticketmaster announced that they've issued 5 million NFTs, right?
Yep.
But they're going to be invisible. It's just going to be the technology sort of authenticating against a blockchain. No one's going to pay attention to the crypto aspect of it. No one's going to pay attention to what even the blockchain is. And slowly but surely, we're going to move from what's a spec state, where people are talking about the tech, to an experience state, where people talk about like, oh, I went to Starbucks and I got XYZ. They're never going to talk about it. Think about this. Like when the PCs and computing was emerging, people were talking about their CPUs, their RAM, their BPSs. No one's going to talk about it. Intel had an ad campaign called Intel Inside. Like, if I ask anyone in the audience today, what percentage of your devices have Intel chips in it versus Qualcomm chips? The answer from everyone here, and you're lying if you have an answer other than this, is I don't know, but it's also I don't care. I just want it to work. And so like, where we'll see NFTs really take off and accelerate is with these companies like Hypermint coming out of MoonPay and Salesforce NFT Cloud literally issuing B2B tokens that will be invisible behind the scenes and enabling rewards and loyalty and subscriptions and memberships.
Emily, where are we going to go with NFTs now?
I think Keith hit the nail on the head there I've always thought that it was more of like a technology as opposed to a term. So yeah, hopefully by this time next year, people are not even really using the term anymore. And it's just something that's complementary to everything else that already exists in the world.
Great.
I'll push back a little bit.
Okay, John.
About bear market. Obviously, prices are down from all-time highs, but there are still people in the audience here at the panel for NFTs. Like a true, just horrible bear market, no one's going to care. NFTs are a fad. They were a scam. They were a one-time thing that happened in 2021. Then get ready to start deploying. The whole time I'm interested in deploying and following new projects. But like Digidaigaku launched 3 weeks ago. Like as an example, even on secondary, it was free to mint, but even on secondary, our fund bought one for like $90. They're up to worth like $25,000. So that's like a 300%.
That's insane.
300,000% return in 2 weeks. So
That's
even
it?
even in a ultra, and the company announced a $200 million raise, like led by Paradigm and I think FTX and Coinbase.
Institutional money just came in right away.
Both, but they're doing a new hybrid model where they have institutional money building this game, but the NFT holders participate in a free-to-own economy where you own the NFT and you're rewarded with in-game stuff. And these are people who created huge mobile games like Game of War and stuff like that. So I think that there are definitely still exciting opportunities, and a true bear market is going to be just, I've only been through one cycle, so 17, 18, but if you remember 18 and 19, people gave up on crypto completely, and they will give up on NFTs again. And then, like Keith said, you won't even know you're using NFTs, but they'll be back, and investors will be still the early adopters with that edge.
Right. How many people here own an NFT? So there you go.
Wait. So if you don't own an NFT, you will not be able to logically understand anything about the space. Like, it is not a studyable space, like from a rational perspective. You have to move it from here to back to up to here. And like, just my advice would be buy one. Buy a $50 NFT. Just like go out and do it, because it will transform your understanding of what is it like to own a digital asset, right? And ultimately, like, what this revolution is rooted on is that your digital identity is equal to your physical identity. And if you can own stuff in the real world, why wouldn't you also want to own stuff in the digital world? And so that would just be my word of advice to anyone. If you're thinking about it, you cannot study the space and come to a logical conclusion, in my opinion, no matter how smart you are, unless you actually go through the process. And by the way, in going through the process, you'll see how many issues there are and frictions there are to mass adoption.
Also, just follow up, how many people have sold an NFT?
very few of you.
Yeah, so it's
How many
even
sold
less.
them today?
Yeah.
I've never sold an NFT in my life. I own hundreds,
Same.
and I'm a hodler.
Same.
Is that bad? Am I losing so much money because I'm not
Well,
selling
you
any
don't
of my
make
NFTs?
anything
Makes us
until you
more
sell
alike.
it.
That's correct. But should I though? Should I be happy that I'm not selling them? I'm like a true collector since all I'm doing is collecting.
Do you want financial advice?
Never.
Sell.
Yeah.
I was gonna say to Keith, I used to write for a newspaper, and they had this rule where to eliminate conflicts of interest, you couldn't write about NFTs and own NFTs. And at some point, like the relationship just kind of fell apart because I was like, I don't think I'm understanding these NFTs if I don't own them and get a sense of it. But also, I just want to own NFTs because it's fun. So.
Andrew, in full disclosure, Andrew's a timepiece artist, and very few people realize it, but he wrote an interview on Justin Aversano that we airdropped to people. And as Andrew and Justin's sort of popularity grew within the ecosystem, like Andrew is a timepiece artist in the written word, saw a lot of success.
Yeah. I know we have only a few minutes left, so let's close this out with activism and world peace. A lot of people in this space are trying to do good, right? Everyone on this stage is involved in a DAO, right? So why don't we tell the audience what we're doing so they know that NFT is not just about making money for the sake of making money. Nadya,
She has to go
obviously first, then I want to go right to Emily, and then everyone else.
Well, first of all, I really love your idea of worm crypto. I think it's a really important conceptual tool. Thank you for developing it. Well, I don't really know how to make money, so that's why the only thing I could do effectively is to just change the world to be a better place. So that's how I came into the NFT world. And I sold so many NFTs and I lost so much ETH that I gained. I'm a loser of a trader. But there is other side of NFTs that is bright for me, and it makes me stay here. I came to the NFT world for the first time with selling my piece that was called Panic Attack, and it was about environmental catastrophe connected with mental health and deterioration of our mental health. And a part of the proceeds of that drop I gave to the shelter for victims of domestic violence in Russia. And it felt good. And I decided that my role in crypto is just going to be this clown who walks around and asks people to, instead of buying yachts and expensive cars and private jets, use money for good. And I think the old money, they know that you have to wash your reputation. You have to give a way to keep being wealthy and not being eaten alive. And because otherwise, guys are just going to be hating you so much, and we're going to start the world revolution. So you want to show that you have a good will if you have money. So obviously, I'm from Russia, so I'm a communist. No, I'm joking. But this is my role. I just walk from conference to conference and tell people, do you want to support reproductive rights? Do you want to support Ukraine? We raised a lot of money for Ukraine just in a few days. And I think without NFTs, it would be much more difficult because if money are controlled by governments and corporations, that's so much more difficult to support subjects like giant geopolitical conflicts. For example, if you live in Russia, if you want to send money to support Ukraine, then you're going to end up in huge troubles. You may even end up in 15 years in jail. But if you use crypto smartly, there are ways, even though there are people who want to, anyway, fuck those who try to fuck up Tornado Cash. I'm not really a big fan of that move. Well, anyway, I believe that crypto should and has to be used for good. And it's not just my personal wish. I think it's in the best interest of all of us here. And people like Vitalik Buterin or Keith, or I mean, all of us on stage understand that, because mass adoption is not going to happen because people are going to feel connected with people who trade monkey NFTs for personal gain. People are going to come here because they will see this technology is being used for good. So yeah, support us.
Amazing. People pleaser.
Well, I mean, I think people can do whatever they want with their money. Like,
Yeah, it's true.
charity is not the end all be all, and I think
No.
a lot of people in this space kind of, it's like trendy to parade that now.
Valid.
It's not like, you know, something that I'm gonna form my life about. My first big sale, NFT sale, I donated like $700,000, all of it to charity, but it was like, I think it was just, you know, some values that I was like brought up with my parents. You know, we volunteer since I was young, and so I'm not here to tell people that they should do that. I think people can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I think that crypto is good for charity in the sense that it's very transparent. So it totally makes sense. You know, I feel everybody
Everything's
in this
online,
room has probably wanted to donate at some point, but you're like, where's this money going? And then you read, you know, online articles
Yes.
where 80% of charity money actually goes to
Those
like
administrative
unseen
costs
places.
and- yeah.
So in that sense, and I actually heard, you know, I feel like most people are so focused on Ethereum, but I heard some interesting things about what Binance is doing as well with their charity. And I just feel like anything on chain makes a lot of sense for that because it's transparent. So that's all I can say.
Amazing. Andrew, Keith, John?
Yeah, I can
Last
go real
minute
quick.
thoughts?
When I was in college, you know, one night at like 2 a.m., I hear this like banging on my door, and I open it, it's my friend Cameron, and he's like drunk out of his mind, and he like sprawls out on my bed, and he's like, man, like, do you feel like we were born at the wrong time? And I was like, what do you mean? And he says, you know, I was born too early to explore the stars, born too late to explore the earth, and I was born just right, just to explore dank memes. And it's like, how sad is that? And I think it's interesting because like a big part of crypto runs on memes, but it also runs on the ability to discover new things. We have this like joke with my co-founders where sometimes our dev will just be like, hey guys, I invented something. And I think that's really cool. When you have the blockchain, you have all this tech, so much of it is open source, permissionless. It's fun to feel like you can explore and invent and discover in the metaverse or in crypto or on the blockchain. And that's kind of fun. I think going to what People Pleaser said as well with charity, when we were doing relief, part of us, we were saying like, okay, well, what if people don't care? And part of it was like, it doesn't matter because if you donate, you get a really cool token, which is actually a really great piece of art. Mm-hmm. And so from my perspective, I'm like, yes, I would like to think I'm charitable, but even if I weren't, if it meant collecting Nadya's art or People Pleaser's art or timepiece art, yeah, I'll do it. I don't have to be the most altruistic person to a couple steps from now making a difference. It's kind of cool.
Keith.
I mean, I'll say I agree with your philosophy. It's people's money; they can do whatever they want with it. But I will also be remiss if I didn't say that this stage, to the credit of this stage, has raised well over $10 million for charity, and Nadya's probably raised over $10 million for charity alone, right?
Yes.
So, like we get to
Kudos.
be on the coattails of just like a tremendous amount. Like you are very understated with how much money you raised, right? But I think that like what we're seeing is, and why I think you're seeing an adoption of crypto today and Web3 really emerge is not only is the technology evolving, but you're seeing a generational shift too. And the generational shift is one that's moving from like a Milton Friedman definition of capitalism to a stakeholder definition of capitalism, where companies are responsible for more than just shareholder return. And the expectation of employees is that the companies that they work for are responsible for more than that. Like when I was at Bloomberg before time, like very few people realized that all the profits of Bloomberg are donated to Bloomberg Philanthropies. And when the United States pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord, Mike plugged it with donations from Bloomberg Philanthropy. And every person on my team went home and talked to their friend, their spouse, their family, and was so proud of that. And I think that within the crypto space, what you're seeing is the ethos during this moment in time where the foundation is strong enough to build on, but that the mass adoption has too much friction at the top to allow everyone to come in, is when a new sort of set of rules can be defined. And I think that there's a whole generation that's expecting more from their employers and from the communities that they're part of. And part of that is, how do you give back? And on a final note, like, I will say that, like, if it wasn't for Ukraine DAO and if it wasn't for relief, like, I wouldn't have had this moment where, like, I did the drop for timepieces, because I sat there with my team and I said on a Friday night, I can't believe that they raised 8 million and I can't believe that he raised 1 million, and, like, we're a values-based community. We have to do something too.
You have to
right?
as well be part of it. And with that note, we're out of time, but hopefully you guys learned a lot. Let's give our panelists a big round of applause. Thank you so much for joining us.